During this video, you'll have an opportunity to look deeper into how your district considers assistive technology. We'll be using the Quality Indicators for Assistive Technology, QIAT, or QIAT. Before continuing, please make sure each team member has a copy of the QIAT Indicators for consideration. There's only 2 pages. They come as a list and also as a matrix. We've included the matrix as a supporting document for this video on the website. Each team member should read the indicator located on the left side of the page and then read the choices and circle or score your team or district on how it currently falls. You'll have time later in the session to discuss your responses with each other. There are 8 total indicators from QIAT at QIAT.org. You'll have an opportunity to look closely at some of them later on in the journey, but today we're focusing on consideration. So here's Mike. Enjoy.
So just a refresher from what the consideration is, AT consideration, collaborative decision making, looking at the existing information we have on somebody. Maybe we collect additional info to give us some more understanding of the person, decide whether or not that person needs AT, and then identifying what that AT might be. That's kind of the end of this. Moves us more into the actual assess and implementation piece, but it's working us through this process. What we can find, we think about AT consideration and what our end possibilities are, our end results. What could we get from this consideration? We get 5 different options of things we could potentially get. They all start with we've considered AT, right? The assumption is we've considered. We'll talk a little bit more about what does that mean, really, consider, and what does that look like. But the idea here is that we have considered it, so now we talk about what are the options someone could come up with. Nothing's needed, so things are moving along. Maybe there's strategies in place, maybe there's a plan in place that doesn't require additional technology to support that, so there's no additional need for AT. We find that the student has not had access but may benefit from AT, so there's nothing currently there, but we think we could add some supports in to help that. There is AT currently there, and the student's needs are being met. That's always a nice one, quite honestly, that's good. Means that there are some supports, things are moving along, progress is being made, the student is having success. We've considered AT, the student is using AT but has additional needs. All right, so that gets triggered through our conversation, through our decision making, through our pulling in more information, so the student has more needs. We've considered AT, and we don't have enough information. We need to figure out how to get more information about this. So this is the we're not sure. And that's an okay, that's a valid answer. That's okay. People get afraid of that number 5. So we have to know. No, there could be a moment where you just don't know. And you have more consideration. Maybe we look to bring in other people from our team, and I'll use team as a loose term right now, from the other people in our school or in our larger school and our districts and our ISDs and bigger. Maybe we need to bring someone in that has expertise that we don't currently have on our team to help us solve that problem. The whole goal of what we're looking at here is to cultivate the expertise we have. We have expertise. We have expertise. Hopefully, we have enough expertise to solve some of the questions that come up, but there might be a moment where we don't. And we need to bring someone else in. Maybe we need to touch base with another group, and maybe someone there has some information. We need a larger network to figure that out. So that is one of the 5 options that could come up. This first one, AT devices and service are considered for all students with disability, regardless of type or severity. What did we get? Did we have some kind of consensus? What did we say? Where do people number that? What's interesting about this first indicator is you don't even have to technically know whether you have a process or not. You almost can just kind of make your own assumption of what considered really means in this situation and go with that strategy of, well, of course we're doing that because we want to make sure kids are successful. This idea of capacity, building capacity, and with that comes education. How do I educate staff that there are these other supports available that I should be thinking about for other students? I want you to think about ways that you can multiply your efforts without running yourself ragged. You want to reach the most people you can with this information, whether it's about our process, whether it's about strategies to support different types of students, whether it's about tools that might support different types of students, whether it's about getting to the people on your team who can help them figure that out. These are all steps that we need to work people towards, and we need to build this up. And you know, I commend you for being part of this, because a large training conversation about process is not the sexiest thing in the world, but it is the most critical thing. It is so important. Everything we do goes back to this. If we don't do this part well, the rest of it kind of falls apart. It's just disconnected apps and tools and people in one classroom will have a bunch of stuff. The very next door has nothing. And then you go to the third door and they have something totally different. All of those rooms might have had something to offer kids in the other classroom, but maybe we never know. So we need to find that process piece. During the development of the IEP team consistently uses a collaborative decision-making process that supports systematic consideration of each student's possible need for AT devices and services. Time and time again, people have proven the expert model does not work. You need to be collaborative. There are far too many of us in these students' orbit to work independently of each other. We have to work together. And so that becomes part of a goal of how do we get this person, and we're saying this person, but any person you come across, how do we get this person that's not seeing eye to eye with our bigger thought process on board to the best we can? We might never get them fully on board, but how do we get them to respect what we're thinking we're going to do as a process and be supportive of that in whatever way they're able to be? We spend our time in AT being reactive constantly. Someone struggles, it triggers something, whatever that middle nebulous something is. If it's a process, great. If it's just someone reaching out to you and asking you a question, it triggers something, and then we jump on it and we solve the problem. Then we take a breath, and then another problem pops up. We rush around to figure it out, and then we solve it. So everything's reactive. It's constantly catching up. Our hope through this and through coming up with a plan of how we address this, we can start to flip that and be proactive. Address issues before they happen. Put a plan in place that people are comfortable at least starting moving towards a solution before it becomes, oh my God, the mom's coming in tomorrow. What are we going to do? Or, oh my God, the mom's here at the front desk at the school. What do we do? You know, those kind of things. And I've been in those situations, and those still happen. But if you have a process, you can then breathe a little easier and say, well, we did address this. Remember, we talked about this. This did happen. So those things are key as we go forward. We'll look at number 3. It's about your IEP team members. So do your IEP team members have the collective knowledge and skills needed in order to effectively make informed AT decisions and seek assistance when needed? This is not about one person with the skills. It's about the team having collective knowledge and skills. All right, we'll move to 4. Decisions regarding the need for AT devices and services are based on the student's IEP goals and objectives access to curricular and extracurricular activities, and progress in the general ed curriculum. Think larger than your room at this point. Your room may be where you can control things, but how does that affect that student as they move beyond your room? And what does that look like? And how do we make sure they're receiving the same supports as they move beyond your space? Number 5, the IEP team gathers and analyzes data about the student, the customary environments, the educational goals and tasks when considering the student's need for AT devices and services. Sometimes we feel like these quality indicators that we're talking about, sometimes these feel a little chicken and egg. What comes first? Well, we have to be able to collect it before we can analyze it. So that has to come first. But we have to be aware through the indicators that we need to collect it and analyze it in order to put a process in place to do that. You know what I mean? So they kind of feed on each other. These consideration indicators are actually walking us through the whole process from when the need is first identified. Now we're kind of in a process where something's in place and we're trying to figure out if it's working. So we've already moved into the process a bit here. And then as we go a little further, when AT is needed, the team explores a range of AT devices that might work for the student. So now we're into trials, and how are we going to figure out where to go with stuff, with the tools themselves? How do we move through that? This is an interesting one. Do people feel like you're exploring a range of solutions? We all know a ton already. We all know a lot. Multiply that by everybody who's in this room, and we know a lot of information. So even if you don't know it, don't let that stop you from moving forward. The key is, even if you don't know it, know someone who knows it. That's all you need. You just need to know. That goes back to your network. That goes back to the people you rely on. Look around the room. These are people interested in the same thing you are right now. This is your network. Look at them. Soak it in. You all have great information to share with each other. We come from so many different backgrounds. We bring that expertise with us of the background of our training, and we layer this AT support on top of it. So we all have tons to share. The AT consideration process and results are documented in the IEP. Are they? The check mark does not count. I could say that it does, and that would have made it easy for you, but I refused it. No. Is the check mark your only demonstration that consideration has happened? You sit down at a contentious IEP, someone, a parent, an advocate, someone else, points at that box and says, how do you do this? What's your answer? You can't run away, you're not allowed. You have to stay in the room. What is your answer? How do you? I see you check this box that you considered AT. What does that look like? What would you say? If you look critically at most of our IEPs, you could pull consideration out of the narrative bits too. So if you really wanted to go in and you go through some of the present levels, you could pull out things that you could say, well, this is where we looked at consideration. So I think you could, but is it explicitly in there beyond the checkbox? reflect for a minute. These are just for you. Taking that information about the QIAT indicators, what is something that kind of struck you? Maybe something you can do, an idea of some next step for you personally, you as a group. Think about giving this to people as you go out and do this wider, share this. Think about, how do I share this in a way that is anonymous enough that people are willing to give you that information?